Hello Wildcats, thank you for tuning in. Before I get started with today's video, just a quick note for our younger Wildcats. If you're watching, just know that this video is specifically for the older students. Now if you want to just stay on and watch it, that's cool. The older Wildcats and I are not going to kick you off, but just know that this is not a typical book reading video, and it may not be as exciting for you. For my older Wildcats, just a quick clarification. As I said in the hello video, I want to, if I do anything at all, I want to be mostly coming from you. Today's topic, it's not from you guys. In fact, I know that the word probably hasn't really gone out yet because I just started this recently, and it's maybe like 2 days ago since I asked your teachers to help share the word. So a lot of you probably don't even know about this yet, but if and when you do find this, I'm still hoping that today's video will be helpful for you, because like I mentioned earlier, we live in a really, really strange period of time right now, and for a lot of you, it might just be really challenging times for you, for your families, for different reasons. And so I want to share something that might be helpful today. So let me jump right into it. I'm hoping to share with you two different concepts, and at the end of the video, I'm hoping to combine the two, and the combination of the two concepts is what I'm hoping that will give you a little bit of help. So let's start with the first one. So like in the title of the video, Cognitive Reframing. Now that's a psychology term. It might sound like it's really deep. It's actually really simple. So let me talk about the first word first. Cognitive is just an adjective that means anything or everything to do with your thinking, your mind, your thoughts. That's really all that is. So if I'm saying like physical abilities, well, that might have to do with like how fast you can run, how much you can lift. But if I'm talking about your thinking abilities, that's going to be your intellectual abilities, how fast you can process information, like that sort of thing. So cognitive, again, mind, thinking, thoughts, that's all that is. The second word, reframing, the best and simplest definition I have come across is to look at something in a different way or in a new way. That's all that is. The thing itself, the object of what you're looking at, perceiving, seeing, that does not change, but your understanding of it, your perception of it, your visual of it changes. In fact, to maybe help it stick a little better, most of the time you see me, walking around school, I look like this, that kind of hair and, that kind of face, that doesn't really change. Every now and then you'll see me walking around the school like this. Now, the reason is I'm actually nearsighted. It's not too bad, but it's always kind of like a little blurry when I don't wear my glasses. The reason why I don't wear my glasses all the time is because I don't like having something on my nose. I don't like that feeling. But there are times when I want to make sure that I see as clearly as possible, driving for one, and then other times, I'm wearing that at school every now and then because maybe I'm in your classroom learning from your teachers. Now, I did not have teaching as my training, as my background, but a lot of the teaching technique or maybe how your teachers approach the classroom, it's very helpful. So sometimes I want to be able to see clearly and learn from them what they do in the classroom, and that's why most of the time you don't see me wearing glasses, but there are times when I do want to make sure I can see clearly. Now, with that, right now I'm looking at the camera. Now the camera does not change, it's just there. But it looks a little different when I don't have my glasses on versus when I have my glasses on. The specific difference is just, it looks a little clearer when I have my glasses on. And that's really what reframing, it's kind of like the object of what you perceive does not change, but the way you look at it becomes different. because maybe of the lens in front of your eyes and all that. So what if we put cognitive reframing together? Now all we mean is we're perceiving something in a different way than we used to. We're understanding something in a different way. Now, let's file that away. That's just the first concept, and we'll come back to it after we've talked about the second one. So what is the second concept that I want to share with you today? The concept of freedom. But before I even jump into it, something that I've noticed this past month from talking to my friends, my families, my loved ones, acquaintances even that I've reconnected maybe after a few years, or maybe I've been forced to kind of examine myself, like how I have been dealing with the pandemic, what are my emotions like from a day-to-day basis, that sort of thing. And from others to myself, I've noticed that there seems to be a common theme, and it's the sense of a loss of freedom. Now, that kind of maybe common experience can trigger a variety of emotions. Maybe for some people it's anger, maybe for some people it's sadness, maybe for still others it could be frustration, boredom, but no matter how someone feels, that seems to be a common underlying reason that at least I've come across. Now, if you have been to my office before, or if I've been to your classrooms doing fun presentations such as Chinese New Year, you probably have heard that I did not grow up in the U.S. In fact, I was born and raised in Hong Kong. The concept of freedom was not something that's unheard of to me. In fact, when I grew up in Hong Kong, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like the U.S. We have freedom of speech, we have freedom of religion, freedom of all sorts of things, provided that you don't disrupt the social good order. In that case, you can pretty much do most things you want. But at the same time, another layer of freedom has also been pretty ingrained in me growing up, and that is maybe let me back up a little bit. So typically we think of freedom as the ability and the opportunity to do what I want, but the other side of freedom that has been pretty ingrained in me is the ability and the opportunity to do what we ought, to do what we should. I thought it would be helpful to focus on the latter rather than the former, and that's kind of when I want to combine the cognitive reframing on freedom, because usually we think of the ability, the opportunity to do what I want. But what if we would reframe how we think about freedom and think of it as the ability and the opportunity to do what we ought? Now, that can change so much. Not only are we focusing on the good stuff that we get to do, but it also gives us a very realistic sense of control. Let me explain. So right now you're probably cooped up in a house. Now everyone has a different family makeup, so I don't know who you're staying with, but I'm guessing there are probably adults in your home that take care of you. Maybe you're also with some relatives, or maybe your grandparents, maybe your siblings too. Have you let them know lately that you love them, you care about them, and that you're there for them? Because sometimes maybe we have lost sight of that, and maybe this is a perfect moment as one of the examples of what we ought to do and what we should do, and even better, what we get to do. Now, maybe words of affirmation is not really your thing, it's like, I'm not that kind of like feeling kind of girl or guy. That's okay. What about to actually do something that's helpful for the people around you. Now, I don't know, what the what your family's needs are, but if you live with them, you probably do. So maybe you can actually, maybe not so much of talking, but more of doing. Maybe that's work that works better for you or for your family. That's cool too. Or maybe they don't really need help from you, and maybe what they need from you is less of you. Maybe you've been on their nerves, and maybe they just, need you to, give them some quiet time. Hey, that's cool too. Maybe sometimes to not do anything, it's also helpful too. But the point is, there is so much that we ought to do, we should do, and we get to do. That's the kind of freedom that has not been taken away from us, and I would argue there's probably not much of anyone or anything that can take that kind of freedom from you ever, because it's all about what you decide to do with that. You are in complete control of doing what you should, what you ought. Now let's maybe think outside of the box even a little more. What about it's not just the people that you live with, but it's also the people that you're not physically with, but you have contact with, maybe through Facebook. I don't know if you use that. Is that Instagram? Emails, or TikTok. I don't know how that works, but you do. But my point is, there are many different ways where you can reach out to people that you have not talked to in a while, and just to check in with them, see how they're doing, and let them know that you're thinking about them. There is so much that we get to do what we ought, what we should, to exercise our freedom that has not been and cannot be taken away from us. And so that's kind of the gist of it, because if we keep thinking about what we cannot do, what we don't get to do, we're also going to indirectly be focusing on the loss of control in our lives. Now that is true, but it's just as true that we still have so much control in our life to do what we should and what we ought. So what if we would focus on that instead? Not to ignore the other thing, but while we have lost some of our freedom to do what we want, the reality is that we still have so much freedom to do what we ought and what we should, and I believe that's going to help us through these difficult times. Now, I'll be perfectly honest, especially if you've been tracking with me earlier when I was talking about reframing. One point that I brought up is with the camera example. The camera is just there. It does not change, but my understanding of the camera, or my perception, my visuals of the camera changes because of how I choose to look at it, without glasses, or maybe, with a pair of glasses. But the camera itself doesn't actually change. And the same thing here. If you do apply cognitive reframing on how we think about freedom, your challenging realities, if that's what you're dealing with right now, those challenges are not going to be different. If they were challenging, or if they are challenging, they likely will continue to be challenging. And so, in a sense, cognitive reframing, it's not going to make your life better. But what I'm hoping is that if we do apply it, it's going to make you better at life. And ultimately, sometimes maybe that is the best that we can do. But I would also argue, if we do that, maybe that is all that we need to do moving forward. So that's about all I have for you today. I hope if and when you watch this, you'll find this helpful, because there's so much that we get to do for the people that we have been blessed to be with, that we have been privileged to know, and that's the kind of freedom that I don't want you to lose sight of. So until next time, take care, and I hope I'll get to see you again very soon. Bye.